Good afternoon, morning, or evening, whenever you're catching another great episode of Leadership Matters with Superintendent Micheal Johnson. We're so excited about the traction we've gotten with our podcast. Just last night was stopped in Best Buy by someone who had seen our last podcast with President Micheal Johnson and just praised it. And I never take any of the credit. I just said I have a crew that sits behind the cameras that really make this happen. And the other thing is I've been blessed to have phenomenal guests as we do today. Introducing him is pretty easy, and I have a layout for today's show, but I'm just so impressed. And I met this brother, and we just connected from the jump, and he's doing fabulous work at Florida High, which is my partner in school, and the work that he's doing at Florida State University's Developmental Research School as well. And so welcome to Striking Conversations, and you're in the lab with me, so I'd like to welcome our special guest and a friend to FAMU DRS, Dr. Christopher Small. So welcome to Leadership Matters, and so excited to have you on with us.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. For folks who may know you, may not know you, there's a lot of special sauce to this young brother. Tell us a little bit about who's Christopher Small, doctor. I always want to make sure I give respect. But who is Chris Small? That's what your mom and mama and them call me. Right. Mama and them call me.
Government name.
Government name. Let's do Lee. You should have never let me know that now, because every email will be Christopher Lee. Can you help a brother out? But tell us, who is Christopher Lee Small?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Again, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And congratulations, man. You knocked it out the park again with your state work, and I've been seeing all the dancing videos of the work you and your team is doing. So congratulations to you guys also on that work for kids.
Back to you all.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Super
we keep
excited.
up with each other. Appreciate it.
Super excited.
I am, again, Christopher Small. I'm originally from the area of Houston, Texas. Still have a 713 cell phone number that don't even give out anymore that I've had since high school.
Really?
And came to Tallahassee in 2004 for grad school, and got a job as a substitute teacher here. And over time, worked toward getting into law school. That didn't pan out. I got into a doc program here in Tallahassee as well, and continued down the path of education, and have been in education ever since. Most recently, again, at Florida High, prior to that in Leon County Schools as a teacher, assistant principal, and principal, and worked at the university for about 4 years as associate professor. So just trying to make my way through this journey here.
They did well. This is unbelievable. Starting my 8th year as superintendent here at FAMU DRS, and what's his 3rd year?
This is year 3 for me.
Yeah,
year
so
3.
Congratulations to that. So you kind of hit on it, but one thing I like for our viewers and for folks to hear, because I think someone's path could connect with a young person who's trying to figure out a path. So you kind of hit on it. Now you were in law school, if I'm hearing you right, and now you're a superintendent, which is phenomenal. Talk to us about that path a little bit more. I know you were, in law school, but kind of talk a little bit about your path.
Yeah, and I'll kind of clarify on that one. So I didn't get into law school.
Well,
didn't get into
they
law
don't need to know that. Just let me roll with it.
That's their loss.
That's their loss.
And I actually I have 2 rejection letters on my office wall to this day.
I'll give you this. W.E.B. Du Bois had one of the best quotes. They asked him, what was it like being the first African-American graduating from Harvard? Was it Harvard? Harvard. And he said, the privilege, I'm sure, was all theirs. So you have them up on your wall?
I have them up on my wall.
Wow.
I often show students those. My journey, and I was retained in 2nd grade. Went through all the the I guess progression of trying to find out who I wanted to be, and thought law school was going to be the piece. And I think that goes back to just being, growing up in a single family home, having a stepdad who unfortunately was into drugs, in and out of prison, and wanted to find a way to give back to my community. And so in our housing projects, it was oftentimes many single moms who were just trying to make it, who were trying to navigate government assistance programs, trying to navigate food insecurities. And so law school was my way of, hey, maybe if I go to school to become a lawyer, I could give back to my community. And unfortunately, those doors never opened. And I think that was pushing me, and I always know God doesn't make mistakes. And so those multiple opportunities, those multiple attempts at trying to get into law school led to closed doors, but it opened up a door into the field of education to where I feel like I've been able to give back even more so to the community, and empowering new students, families, to become more than what they've dreamed for themselves, letting them know that we all have things that we go to, and we don't always get that first ideal dream job that we want to have, or that first career option, but he never takes us to a place that he's not willing to sustain us. And so making sure that we stay true to who we are, and finding where God wants us to be above anything else. And sometimes it's not the path that we thought for ourselves. When I called my grandfather, I remember letting him know that I was going to get into the field of education, and he said, well, you've been teaching your entire life. I was the oldest of 5 on my mom's side, and he said, you used to hold summer school for your siblings. You don't remember that? And I was like, yeah, that was to make sure that they were good. And so again, these seeds that we're planting along the way have turned into what people see today.
You were meant to be.
Meant to be.
Well, and then I do know strong man of faith, so maybe it's Reverend Dr. Christopher Small, and congratulations to you. I won't put your business out there, but congratulations on a true blessing.
Yes, sir.
That will sustain you as well.
Truly a blessing.
Yes,
truly a blessing.
Yes. Met her a couple of times, and both of you guys are very lucky.
Thank you, sir.
Coming back a little bit, and interesting enough, I said Fourth Ward, I believe. They were recruiting me for a principalship in the Fourth Ward, and brother, I was like, like Whitney Houston. I was like, hell to the no, not right now in my life. No, it was actually great. At the time, I think it just, I hit a part in education, and I'm going to come to you, is like, I never saw myself as a superintendent. I never saw myself as a principal. When one of my best friends in the world, shout out to him, love him to death, Terrence Johnson, I was an 8th grade teacher, and he came to me one day. I was out doing hall duty and clowning, because I was always clowning with kids. And he said to me, he says, Mike, you need to go to graduate school, and you need to become a school leader. And I was like, oh. Yeah, and he just stayed on me about it. And he, I never forget, summer school was coming up. And he said, hey, I want you to be one of our summer school deans. And so he was one of those people, and I'm blessed to, I can name, and I've named them before. And was there a point in time or a person that kind of just did that same similar thing for Christopher Lee?
Absolutely. And her name is Sandra K. Collins.
Shout out to Miss Collins.
Miss Collins, yes.
Make sure she gets this show.
Please do.
You will get it early. Sure. You're going to get it, so you share it out. But go ahead.
But this was back when Leon County used to host these big teacher recruitment fairs in the Civic Center.
Okay.
Hundreds of teachers coming out to the Civic Center to apply for jobs at different schools. I took my resume to this convention. At the time, I was still doing adult ed at TCC at the time as a substitute teacher, and was applying for a teaching position. All the tables, all the jobs were kind of filled, and Ms. Kay Collins was sitting at this table by herself. I'm like, nobody's visiting her table. Let me go see what's going on. Yeah. So I give her my resume and find out that she was located in Jefferson County as the only F school that was out there. And she introduced me to, at the time, their deputy superintendent, and said, I need him to be my dean of students. It's like, dean of students? So, wait, I'm trying to be in a classroom. I'm substitute teaching here. It's like, no, with your background, you need to be doing more than that.
Wow.
And so we started at Jefferson County and moved them from an F to a C. We then came over to the only failing school in Leon County, which was NIMS Middle School at the time. Moved them from an F to a C, and became an assistant principal under her tutelage after they closed Bellevue Middle School down, and they consolidated NIMS and Bellevue, which were two opposite ends of the track. So we together, along with our staff, worked to bring two communities with a lot of history, a lot of history.
Right.
a lot of history, a lot of disagreement to find ways for those students to be one. And now, NIMS is still performing and doing well, but that was the person and that opportunity that I got that I didn't see for myself.
Wow.
That she pushed me down that road of, hey, you need to get into administration. I had taken a lot of courses in high-level maths and science, trying to get prepared for law school, and all of those things just kind of worked in my favor.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's really interesting. I when you said that, I remember when I first became an elementary principal. I think that was in 2003-ish. And I'm old, I guess. Huh? And there were 5, and I kid you not, black female principals. And I think about it like what they did is, do we still do this? And they came and said, boy, they did. They called me boy because they were so like my mamas. And I said, boy, we're going to go to dinner and we're going to show and tell you how to be a principal.
Yeah.
And they said, and we ain't going to stop until we feel like you're going to be. And they gave me like real, you can't get from books from what they were like. You don't do
Practical
this.
That's wisdom.
Yeah, they were the first ones to say, and they take your stuff out, but you don't drink with them. And I was like, well, at the time, I was like, that's the reason I would go out. But then I started understanding.
Yes,
and so do you see that, and I don't want to say that same type of nurturing, but it was a special type of nurturing I got. And I just wonder, do our younger folks still get that type of nurturing?
I wholeheartely agree and had some of the same. I think, during my time at NIMS, I had a chance to, interact with the Dr. Micheal Gales of Leon County.
Phenomenal woman.
Have done and continue to do the Sandra K. Collins that was here. We had just principals in this space, Pam Hightower, who was here. Gwen Lynn, who was at Griffin. You had these people who, again, did exactly what you did, what you just kind of described of. They knew the importance of grooming. They knew the importance of the skill set that was needed to lead in certain communities.
Absolutely.
That was not always taught in the textbooks. And so you had to learn through these interactions and through these opportunities. And so those are things that are still near and dear to me. I have work to do the same thing to pass that on. And so I have a stream of young men that have come behind me that I still work with and keep up to this day, who are now principals and assistant principals. And that's so important.
Yeah, I mean, the ones, because I spent more time there, is on a weekly, I hear from principals that I reached back and pulled up. Actually, one of my teachers reached out to me and was like, don't you want to come back to Colorado? And I said, well, we'll see. But I think that's really important and for us to continue to do. I always quote Dr. Patrice Floyd, and she always says, "No one else is coming to save us." And I've stolen that phrase from her because it's just so profound. So thinking about back to those days when you had that, how have you evolved from the NIMS day to Dr. Christopher Lee, and those? How have you evolved?
A few things come to mind. One, our field has changed a lot. And so I think even during those times where you had this pool of individuals who were knocking at our door to get into the field of education, who wanted to be teachers, wanting to give back, wanting to pour into students, because of all the context and all the noise that we've had, especially since COVID, those days are not the same. And so now it's having to be innovative in terms of, how do I grow from within? How do I groom people? How do I take, from my substitute teaching pool or my paraprofessional pool to groom them to be the educators that we want them to be? How do I take my teachers in my classrooms who are leading the charge and are getting great results and grooming them to be future leaders versus keeping them in those classroom spaces? And so I think trying to be that type of leader who sees the climate and the context of where we are, and trying to help to navigate to make sure that our students get the best possible outcome. They don't get to repeat grades, and so once third grade is over, and so they're going to the next. And so how do we continue to build those pipelines from within? I think also just being very cognizant of the grace that people need, and giving that grace to myself as a leader. And so at the end of the day, they don't read resumes at funerals.
Okay.
And so I think making sure that we're giving time to our families, that we're giving time to our kids, our siblings, those types of things, to where you don't get those moments back.
Yeah.
And the job will keep going. And so being very cautious of, denying a leave for a thing, or making sure that someone's mental space is good. And if they need some time, being okay with them taking that time versus, no, I need you to be here because we have benchmarks to meet. That was the way it worked. It was the marching orders of, hey, we got to do these things. So where now, as a leader, you have to be more cognizant of what people are dealing with, and giving them the space to be human before they're educating.
Yeah, I think early on it was, you were evaluated on a lot. How many hours were you really putting into the job? And I just told a young brother, I said, I've done this for a minute, and I've never heard at the end of it for anyone, they said, man, we thank you for putting in all those hours and neglecting your family.
Not at all.
No one does. And so you have to find that balance. What keeps you grounded in that balance?
My family.
Okay.
I was a single parent, single dad for 10 years. And knowing that most of my family's in Houston, all my family's in Houston, and so not having a large network here, having my church family who's here, now having fiance that's here, and so I think making sure that those...
That was a congratulations.
Thank you.
I wouldn't put your business out there.
Making sure those things are taken care of, and that's my why. I do what I do, and I am who I am because of my son and my family.
And if they're doing it right, as mine does, they'll keep you grounded. Because when I go home, I'm sure as they're not looking for me to talk about how I balance a budget. They're not looking for me to talk about, we figured out how we're going to do TSIA funding. When I walk in the house, I saw we're walking in, they're walking in, and they're saying, Dad's home.
Yes.
My wife is saying, she's been with me every step for, shout out to her, because we just celebrated 29 years of marriage on Sunday. Yes. With God, all things are possible. And that includes her putting up with me. But I think she's behind the camera, just probably shaking her head. I'm not going to even look over there. But, if your family is doing it right, you still got to be Michael, who happens to be a superintendent, not superintendency that's defining Michael. And you got to be willing to give that up and not really mind that people think you should be something else. And I think one common thread that is our faith also keeps us grounded. Let me ask you a question that's kind of off of that, because I do know you're a man of faith. And if you have to sit back and go, faith-led leadership, and then you have the leadership we do. How does that work for Christopher Lee?
A few things coming to mind right now. I lead with my heart, definitely. And one of the I just had a conversation with one of my lead custodians a couple weeks ago, and he was sharing with me that he said, you've only been here a couple years, you've never hit me over the head with the Bible, but I know by how you carry yourself that you have a grace on you.
Great.
And you don't have to hit us with the word every day, but how you respond to things, the compassion that you show, even your language shows that there's something on the inside of you that causes us to walk differently on our campus.
Nice.
So I try to make sure that I lead in these spaces, children included, in terms of leading with that heart and leading with the same grace that God continues to show me, giving that to those that are following me and or looking up to me in that space, to know that we're all human, and I have to reach you before I can teach you. And so making sure that I lead with that reaching effect, and asking someone how they're doing. No, tell me really how you're doing. Have you had lunch today? Have you eaten today?
Right.
Meeting the person first, then let's get to the other pieces and sharing that same kind of philosophy with our teachers of it's hard to teach them until you've reached them where they are. And so if it means taking a moment from the pacing guide to have a fireside chat and have a conversation about what may be bothering and or what may be happening around them, then we have to do that. And that's the same grace that we see throughout the Bible of he knew he had to reach them where they were regardless of what their situation was. In order for me to pull you over here or to see a change, I have to first meet you where you are and not making the impression that I'm perfect in my space and I want you to pull up to me. No, I'm going to meet you where you are, and it may be different from where I am, but we can get to the same place together.
Wow, that's phenomenal. I just still have a problem. I got some vernacular words I've got to just leave out in the world, and then I think I'm gonna be on a much better path. But really, that's great to hear because, I think so many times, and I'll say when you lead with your heart, I think it makes you more vulnerable.
Yes.
And it opens you up to more heartbreak through this work. And because for me, being that type of leader, which if 99% of the people truly got to know Chris and got to know Mike, they would go, man, these dudes just want the best for me. And it hurts the worst. I don't know, and I'm going to ask you to respond to this, when you feel like people don't know those intentions. And, I've heard people, and I'm being very real in my job, and like, they'll say, well, he only does this and that's an only care. I'm like, do you know I'm sometimes loving harder than I should? So do you ever get that feel of leading with a heart can give you some heartbreak?
I've definitely had those situations where you're like, well, how did that come out of, if you know me, you should know these things.
Right.
And so, yes, I mean, I think that's the nature of the beast in many cases. I think what I have tried to do in response to that is, instead of letting that shake my faith, continue to stand and show. Some people just need more and more examples of it.
Right.
And so I think just being very intentional about being consistent with that, to where, I may have gotten slapped in the face today, but I'm going to go back and smile and still love on you and show the grace of God, regardless of how I feel I've been treated in those spaces.
Right.
And also making sure that I don't allow the 10% to take away from the 90%.
Right. And what I've gotten so much better about is really releasing folks and letting them be where they are.
Yeah.
I got to let go and let God, because I can't, my brother used to always say, I was like, man, he's like, man, the Savior is come and gone. I'm just the vessel. And you have to sometimes come to, for your own protection, a harsh reality, because, Chris is going to keep doing what Chris is doing. And it's up to sometimes people to decide if they're going to follow your leadership or not. And I would say that's called free will. Yeah. And so it's so amazing. Again, Superintendent Johnson here at Leadership Matters with the great Dr. Christopher Lee Smalls, and super excited. I mean, I've only marked on here to make it look good, but I could talk to this brother without a script, and hopefully people will find it enjoyable and learn something else about who you are. We've been yoked in this work for 3 years as lab school leaders. Shifting a little bit, talked about lab school work and the work that it does to create opportunity and innovation and all, because people will probably say to you what they say to me, like what Florida High is doing, what FAMU DRS is doing, but they don't realize a lot of times you and I are talking about that, and they'll understand that we communicate
monthly.
So talk a little bit about lab school work, our lab school work together, and some of the innovations that you guys are doing specifically at Florida High.
Got it. I could probably talk a long time about
this. Okay, well, I'll just do this one of these numbers.
Lab schools go back a few hundred years here in the state of Florida, and our charge is to not only educate in that K-12 space, but also to be laboratory spaces for innovative practices. And that comes in a myriad of I think, formats and frameworks of what that may look like, but that promotes or allows our teachers to promote the idea of identifying what we call problems of practice or action research topics, where they are identifying areas that they're excelling in, that they want to dig in a little bit more and conduct some additional data collection on, or an area, hey, we're not performing well in here. I want to try these innovative practices or this strategy to see if it works, and then sharing and disseminating that information not only in our local communities but across the state and across the nation. And so all of our lab schools are charged with that through Statute 1002.32.
And listen to the attorney.
Charges us with that task of partnering with the university to provide that space. I think along those same lines, all of the lab schools are different. And so each of us have our own flavor in terms of what they may look like. And so when people ask, hey, they're doing this at this lab school, well, they have their niche.
And population matters.
Yeah. So all those pieces are, I think, unique to that space. But I think with us coming together every month as lab schools, we feed off each other in terms of how we can continue to build toward that same goal of impacting education, not just in our spaces, but also in our communities and statewide. Some of the projects that we have going on right now, one is our Live Healthy, and so that's something that all of our lab schools have been charged with, and we thank the legislature for continuing to allocate funding to allow us to be that innovative hub in terms of knowing that, you know, the status of healthcare and our population of growing retirees, there's a need for medical professionals. And it's not just your doctors, but this is your CNAs, your nursing assistants, it's your dental hygienists, it's all those other affiliated, your phlebotomists, all those other affiliated medical fields that need support as well. And so all of our lab schools are working toward developing frameworks and pipelines for how do we continue to grow this field in terms of the healthcare space. And so that's one of those projects that we continue to work on. We're also building in for us, specifically emergency management is another piece that we're building in terms of knowing that Florida has hurricanes, right? Yeah. Sometimes we get tornadoes every now and then.
You know, I was amazed, like, well, it was a tornado. I didn't hear the sirens. And then it was like, there are no sirens. I'm like, what? I'm in Florida. You're not going to warn me it's coming? That was a shocker. Absolutely.
So we're building some pipelines for those as one of our newer projects in terms of how do we begin to show our students and our future FEMA employees and those types of things of what it means to be a part of an emergency management team. And so some partnerships there through our speakers of other languages. Also getting into some translation work of going into communities that may need translators. And so those are the types of things that we try to push and promote in our lab school space that may not be typical in your traditional public school, but giving us that space to do that work and then sharing it. It's not that we want to keep it to ourselves. How do we then share some of the frameworks and practices that we're using in some of our CTE areas as well as some of our academic areas to share with them.
And just building better people that can go out and contribute, you know. Only a few is we formulated a partnership with Morehouse Medicine, and we just had I think about 15 students that were there for a summer institute with them, and you know several people have asked, you know, and I know Florida State is transitioning into that, but I also said I think for our kids. Seeing is believing as well. And the overarching thing that I heard, and this is what's great about our lab schools to be able to do those things, is students coming back and telling me, I had never seen that many black doctors before, and in white coat, and they see that, and it energizes them as well. And then you know the research, as you spoke about, we had 9 of our teachers through FRAP, which was with Dr. Nicole Terry. 9 of our teachers did research with, and she partnered with us through FSU, and we did those type of research partnerships. Each one of our teachers was tied to a FAMU faculty member to do research. And so hearing that, and I love hearing the FEMA component. So when you read my newsletter, don't be like, that joker ran with my... No, that's how we share. But FEMA, and I say that in joke because we share.
We have to.
We share those. And when we had to go speak, it wasn't individuals. We went and spoke to legislators. And you were almost a kind of a new superintendent.
That was my first year.
I was like, chill out, you got it. I was just as nervous. And I was like, man, you got this. Like I did it every day. I was like, man, but you were an interim. And you went up and we had to present
and share
on the floor.
That's it.
And you killed it, and you keep killing it. So that's great. Hearing about that is one of the things we've started really looking at and formulating with the university is work around AI. And Coach Jones spoke a little bit about it. I don't know if he was 12, but he started doing AI work. But it's been out there longer than people know. But we're really trying to focus around. Have you guys began looking at that component at Florida High and what it looks like?
Absolutely, and so that's actually one of our projects that we presented in Finland this year of innovative AI projects. And so we partnered with the Florida State Office of Instructional Design to do some projects this year. So we had 10 teachers who looked at AI through their various spaces, everything from music and art all the way up to some of our AP coursework. And we presented in Finland about some of the work that we've been doing around AI and using it for translation services, using it for our commercial art and design, where they are utilizing design spaces there. And so that's definitely something that's on our radar. We've opted to embrace versus push away. It is here, and so now it's just teaching students to be responsible users of it, critical consumers of all things AI, but knowing that there are things that are put in place for our adults that may not be appropriate for kids, and so making sure that we're teaching them the practices versus trying to restrain them from using it. It almost reminds me of like when the internet came about. Oh, stay away from the internet. It's going to be the death of us. No, it's coming, and it's going to continue to grow. And so how do we teach them ethical principles about how to use AI, and then also, prompt engineering is big as well, of how do you, get the outcome that you want based upon a framework for entering in the prompt that you want the AI to produce.
It's so funny you saying that. I remember a few years ago when I heard how AI and what it was going to be, I was like, no way. And now, I don't want to say, I don't know where my phone is, so I'll say it and start talking, but one of my friends who died when we were going into junior high school, I named my AI after it. I don't want to say his name because it'll probably start talking, but many mornings, Fred and I'll talk to it and say, okay, I also need an agenda for XYZ, and these are the four. And by the time I get to work from South, it's on my desktop. Wow. And how can you now as a leader not want to be able to utilize that? Now, I still kind of worry about like how much Fred knows about me and what goes on. But it's what you said, it's like the calculator. Like, we give me my calculator to figure out this tip versus me. Like
that was the devil back in the day. You shouldn't use a calculator.
So now here we are. We have AI, we have all this great technology, but still in the heart of it, Dr. Smalls, is the student. Student relationships. If I just throw that out to you, that as leadership matters, student relationships matter as well. Absolutely. Talk to me about kind of how you're encouraging and growing folks to really still, at the end of the day, with all we have to focus on students.
Actually, you're getting into my back-to-school message, which is going to lend itself to the same thing, that words matter. And so words can either build people up or tear people down.
Absolutely.
And so in that space of, developing students and connecting with students, a lot of it is through our words and our interactions with them. And so they're watching, and they need us now more than ever in terms of examples of how we carry ourselves, how we speak to each other, because they get a lot of things through social media. They get a lot of things online, and some of those things are so far out of context or out of the norm for what we want to see. We don't want them to adopt behaviors and character traits that can't carry them through the rest of their lives, at least not in a positive manner. And so how we speak to each other each and every day in the hallways, how we interact with them, they're watching and they're absorbing all of that information and that feedback in terms of how they're going to portray themselves. I talked to our sixth graders this year about the importance of character, and character not just being about how you show up in the classroom, but it's when no one else is watching. And so what are the decisions that you're making, and how are you speaking when mom and dad is not around, when Dr. Small is not around, when my pastor's not around? Am I that same person? And if it's not, we got to retool some things to make sure that how you show up in those spaces, how you communicate, how you treat people is consistent and is in a positive space. I eat lunch with a lot of students throughout the year, just finding out where they are, going to games and going to activities. You have a chance to kind of talk to families and talk to parents. And that's something that's important to build those relationships to where they see us not just with the title, but they see us as a person, and they have those relationships with us to where if there is a problem or there is something going on, they feel comfortable with coming to share.
That's dope, because every year I go in and speak to, we start a new teachers academy, and they kind of look at me, and I've even had people push on me as educators, what we do outside of the building matters as well. We live in sometimes a different time. Like I can live my life, I can have my own life, but students are looking at you in totality.
Yes.
And so I never will forget the amazement. It's probably I was teaching 5th grade, and my wife and I were at Walmart and ran into one of my students, and I had toilet paper in my buggy. And I don't know if Heather remembers. This student was like, toilet paper? I'm like,
you buy
I'm like, because
We're
they
human.
just see us in sometimes a light that I wish we could see us. But it's changed so much. That was 30 years ago. You know, I'm going to have my own life. I'm going to do my life. But still, that matters. Is how you show up, not just here. And I'm not telling people not to live and do your best life. But, you know, in these service positions, you know, people would say, well, I bet not see my pastor out doing X, Y, Z. Well, he can live, but he's got to be smart on how he or she lives in leading churches. And it's very similar in the roles that we live as well.
Yeah.
I think so. I mean, it could beg to be different, but that's just kind of how I look at it. Again, you're on Leadership Matter with Micheal Johnson and Christopher Lee Small joining us, and I'm so excited to have him here in studio with us. So I do have just a couple more questions that just want you to part some wisdom with us. And one is, you know, I think as a universal challenge is, you know, because our society is so different and so diverse, our families also come with their experiences before they have children, and now they have children and their experiences. What's the uniqueness that works for you working with our families in so many diverse needs?
Yeah. I would say not treating every case the same, knowing that every case is going to have its own set of variables that are being brought to the table, making sure that we listen more than we respond. And so sometimes it's just the listening ear that a family needs to just share their experiences or share their concerns. And it doesn't always warrant an immediate answer, but just making sure that they feel heard. And so I think as I've kind of gone through just leadership in general, making the time to listen to families, to meet them where they are, but also reminding them of our connected vision of where we want to see their child go. And so sometimes it's the tough conversations as well about a decision that was made or a level of rigor that we want to see from a child in terms of their academics that they may be leery about, but knowing that we're going to support them along the way. And if there's something that we can do better or add to, we're open to those suggestions, and giving them that opportunity to provide that feedback to us, I think is going to be important. And families come in, again, a lot of different models. You have different variations of families that are coming to you with their own background and their own experiences. And so you have to allow them to exist in those spaces and meet them where they are.
Right, and I think, you know, what I've said to folks, and in some light, but being very true, is if we don't have families, we don't have students.
Not at all.
We don't have students, we don't have jobs, we don't have a future. So I think that's so important of those connections with families and working and receiving them for their differences and likenesses that they have.
Yeah. And often even reminding parents of, you know, my expectation is that you're your child's biggest advocate. And you may, you know, come across a certain way and you may get upset. At the end of the day, I'm trying to read between the lines of what is the root cause. And I'm not going to not respond because of the approach in many cases, because I want you to advocate for your child. I want you to bring things to our attention. And we may not agree on the thing, but that is a responsibility of a parent that I can't take away even in my position. And as a dad myself, I want to make sure that I get the same respect if I'm, you know, bringing something to someone's attention that, you know, you may not agree with me, but I at least have the opportunity to share those concerns.
Yeah, I have to sometimes even self-check, you know, myself. And just this morning I was on my way to work and it was kind of late going in through the back door. This car whips through and lady honks, and I'm like, yeah. She goes, "Do you work here?" And I was like, "Yes, ma'am." And she said, I said, "Can I help you? I'm a new parent. Can I just show you something?" And I'm like, "Oh God, what is?" She gets out with 2 uniform shirts.
Wow.
And she said, "Is it okay if it has like this?" Because I'm looking at, And it was just that simple.
Wow, yeah.
But for her,
That was big.
that
yeah,
was
that
a
was
huge
big,
thing. And I thank God that I just stopped, because then I told her, not in, but I was like, well, whatever else you need, I'm the superintendent, please. She's like, oh, really? I was like, yes, ma'am. She's like, oh, I'm sorry. Because then she felt like it was a lower level. But I was like, no, that's part of it. But I sometimes think we can forget that those moments matter to a parent, and especially the thing, she's a new family coming here, and so
it's trying to do the right thing, trying to make sure that I'm in compliance, because I don't want my child to have a circumstance when they get there, and so providing them with that space.
Yeah, just to ensure that they feel like their kid is gonna. That shows her, I hope, that we're gonna take care of your child, because we're gonna take the time to see what you need. And it's a lot of times it's just people wanting to. They want help. They want to understand, and it's not anything else, but just help me. So that's good. What thinking about, man, it's changed so much in my time in education. What would Christopher Small say to what's your message to those new teachers when they walk in, and what should they prepare for when they walk in?
A message to new teachers, and what should they be prepared for? I guess I'll have to speak from kind of my own personal experience as an educator. The best approach to classroom management is a good lesson plan.
Absolutely. If you don't plan, you can't do it, baby.
So if you plan appropriately, knowing that the lesson plan may change, but coming in as a new teacher, that's one of those tools in your toolbox is plan according to grade level standards. Give them the support that they need to get there, to make sure that those first few days, that first day of school is going to be as positive as possible. Going back to what I said about reaching them before you teach them, build those relationships as a new teacher, but set those boundaries. And so students want to know that you care. They want to know that you are willing to go above and beyond for them. And sometimes they don't show it. Sometimes it doesn't sound like it. And things that they say, you're like, well, they don't really they're paying attention, and they're watching.
To everything.
And many times it's how you respond to those not so good moments determines how they end up and or the future interactions you may have. And so for a new teacher coming in, working to build those relationships and knowing who their students are, who their families are, who their parents are, but also being very strong in your academic planning to where students also know that they're going to get a strong foundation from your class by the time that they leave that school.
Yeah, I think, and I hope that they catch it. I always tell them, remember, whatever experience that parent had when they were leaving a school, good, bad, or indifference, is probably what they're going to pass on to their students. So if their parents had a bad experience, you've got to get to know that so that you can right that wrong experience for them. And so, really good. I have one more before we have some fun questions here. And it's around, your graduates that walk out of Florida High, Florida State University school. What would be like maybe one thing that you would hope that every graduate that walked out of Florida High remembered?
If the dream is big enough, the facts don't matter. Was part of my message to this most recent class. Knowing that there are going to be facts and situations that they're going to encounter as young adults. And sometimes those facts are hard to swallow and may get you to a point to where you may want to give up. But if your dream for yourself is big enough, those facts will eventually dissipate if you stay the course, if you keep pushing. And so knowing that life is going to throw them all kinds of curveballs, and so staying grounded in who they are, knowing that they have family or support systems that are there to keep dreaming, and knowing that those dreams may change. I share my story all the time about the retention and not getting into certain graduate programs, but it didn't stop my grind and my hustle to make sure that I found where I was intended to be. And so that would be my advice to a young graduate who has all of the, the high hopes and the dreams in the world and everything's going to line up just right. Be nice if it does, but sometimes those things don't line up exactly how you planned, and you can't let that get you down or prevent you from moving forward.
One, I keep saying this last one. This is not on there. It just popped to me, the spirit. What's one failure that you contribute to your biggest success?
One failure.
That you felt like it was a failure, because failures are opportunities as well. And I'm going to let you marinate. I'm going to tell you one real quick. I'm going to let you marinate, but you got to get that one. Before, about a year or so before coming to Florida, first of all, I had never been to Tallahassee in my life. Both my wife and I are HBCU graduates, so HBCUs by way of HBCU, but like going to knew nothing. So before the year or so before I came here, my children, who are both DRS graduates now, their school district contacted me about my interest in Florida, in Colorado, of being an assistant superintendent. And I was like, no, because I never wanted my kids to be up under me, because I didn't want them to gain anything or lose anything based on, what role I served in. But anyway, I was like, no, and they were courting me. I was like, okay, and I started thinking that'd be pretty cool. For one, it's less than 5 minutes, the district office, maybe a little more from my house. I started thinking about that'd be kind of cool. And so I said, okay, I threw my hat into the ring. I was like, okay, I'm gonna apply for it. And I remember after my interview, I called Heather, and she was like, how did the interview go? I was like, killed it. I said, if they don't hire me, it's just because they didn't want, because, you can feel it, like they were engaging and leaning up, and can we ask you another question? And when your interview is supposed to be an hour and it ends up being an hour and a half, it's like, okay. And let me tell you, I did interview on Thursday. They quickly called me Saturday morning, and I said, okay, Littleton Schools, this is, and they were like, hey, Mr. Johnson, we want to tell you, we appreciate it. One heck of an interview, but we've decided to move in a different direction. I'm like, you called me for that. And it hurt, because I started building myself up for, man, this is going to be a different change. Fast forward a year later, I was interviewing for this job. God said, you're not going to be your kid's assistant superintendent. You're going to be your kid's superintendent. So my name is on their diplomas that hopefully my grandkids, great-grandkids can see one day. So I thought that was a letdown or a failure, and it worked in my favor. And I share that all the time, even with my own children. And sometimes when you think something's being done to you, it's being done for you. So I gave you some time.
I got a few running through my head. I spoke.
You can speak about all of them.
Spoke about.
We got
one,
enough film rolling.
Was the law school journey, and I think prior to getting to that, while in undergrad, I started off as a biology major, and couldn't pass organic chem, couldn't pass statistics or AP calculus as an undergrad student. So I lost some scholarship dollars. Ended up having to change my major. Wasn't sure if I was going to graduate on time. Around the same time, my family back home in Houston was having financial trouble, and so I started working multiple jobs, just trying to do all the things, and felt like I was just failing on every front. Of academically, things were going on. Mom was having a hard time on the home front, and so trying to support them. And so I graduated from undergrad with barely a 2.0, not knowing what life
next?
Was going to kind of hold, and came out to Florida kind of to try to restart, and got into grad school out here, and again didn't get into law school, and so it was like all these pieces over that that trajectory of a couple of years just wasn't working in my favor. Everything was door closure until I met Sandra K. Collins, and things started to turn around. But I think each of those experiences where, again, going back to, we have these plans and we have these things that we think we're called to do, and sometimes God is trying to push us in another direction. And many times his plan is 10 times better than what we had planned for ourselves. And so I can say,
and it works
to this day. The course failures and all the things that took place prior to now happened for a reason. They taught me a lot of resilience, a lot of optimism in the face of adversity, and losing scholarships and not knowing how you're going to pay for textbooks and how you're going to survive. Having to pawn stuff to kind of get by, like all the things that we do just to stay afloat, have gotten me to this space to where I now know where my faith is. My faith has been strengthened, but I also have a strong commitment to ethical leadership in terms of not being willing to sell my soul for a grade or for a project, staying true to what I know God has placed me in a place to be, to where I don't know anyone any favors for making an exception to a rule, and I have to answer for that down the line.
Yeah, no one made you, so you're not owing to it. You just did some fraternity stuff that I questioned, but that's okay. He's a proud member of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated.
Spring 01.
Oh, see,
Xi Sigma chapter at Baylor University.
Baylor.
Executive style news.
Man,
yes, sir.
My wife went to Baylor.
Really?
Yeah. So I'll give you
Sickle
that.
Bears.
Oh no, we ain't doing all of that. But I still love him. I mean,
Yes,
I'm a Blue Phi, but it's
all
great. So thank you so much. But before I get out of here, I do this little lightning round. There's actually a lot of I think sometimes that's when you learn the most out of folks. I think I remember the President Johnson was like coffee before bed. I think I was like, what? But you learn a lot. It's fun learning. So we'll do this, and you can respond if you take a second to go. You can. So here we go. It's 10 of them, but with me it usually ends up being maybe a couple more. I think of something.
Got it.
All right, here we go. Question 1: leadership is
inspiring.
Inspiring. Okay. One book every leader should read.
Dare to Lead.
Dare to Lead.
Brene Brown.
Common Sense Leadership. Abe Lincoln. That's one of my favorite. It is. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
How often?
At least once a day.
Once a day?
Yeah,
no tea ever?
Every now and then.
Really? But coffee?
Black coffee.
Like I think one of our guests is... I don't know if you know Sika Rose Green, but she was like, coffee, and if I don't get coffee in the morning, it could be some problems.
Oh, no. I'm not that bad.
But you got to have your cup.
Yeah, I prefer to have it in the morning.
Home or Starbucks?
Home.
Home, okay. I agree with that. Early bird, night owl?
Early, oof. I'm a combo.
Yeah.
I work better in the morning, but I like to work late on projects to help me save time in the morning.
Okay. Well, not because you got to get it in. You got to get it done. I know that one. I don't know. I think I'm hybrid as well. Yeah. Favorite restaurant?
Oh, I don't eat out a lot. I'm going to go with Outback Steakhouse.
Outback? Okay, that's fair. You don't eat out a lot? You cook?
I try to, yes.
And is the future doctor, she's a cook? You said that quick. Yes. I put a ring on it because she said one good meal. I remember my wife made my roommate and I a trough of lasagna in college. And we were sitting there, he's like, boy, if you don't marry her for lasagna, you know anything. I was like, man, that girl can do some lasagna. I can't let that go. But so many other skills. But you can't beat a good home-cooked meal.
Cannot.
I don't care what restaurant you think you're going to, a good home-cooked meal matters. Best leadership advice you've received?
You have to reach them before you teach them.
Reach them before you teach them. That's great. What do people misunderstand about superintendents?
That principals are the primary contacts for the buildings.
Yes.
Oftentimes I have them come
100%.
straight to me and have you talk to your principal first.
And it frustrates people.
Yeah.
I always say that.
They want to come straight to...
I do remember one thing that, And he's now, to see Dr. Hightower told me is that, you know, and I'm not dissing the other super, he said, but I love that you send them right back to me. I'm like, because most of the time I don't have the answer.
Context, yeah.
And I don't have the context, and I'm not going to work against you or work for you if I don't understand. And I actually like order to it. And if it can't be solved there, then I need to be the one to help try to come to a resolve. So
yes,
I would think that. And I think also, to me, one of the myths is that it's just a coffee cup walk job. Because I don't think people see, especially for us as laboratory schools, what you're beholding to the university and what you're beholden to the state as well.
Yeah.
You know, you and I, and you're larger than I, but I'm still held accountable for every piece of paper that Miami-Dade with departments are held to.
Yes.
And so I think that's some of it to me as well. I love this one. Favorite way to recharge?
Sleep.
Sleep? Well, why when I called you the other day, you're like, I'm out here doing yard work. I was like, man, it's 155 degrees.
But that's not recharging. That's just,
it had to get done.
It had to get done.
Had to get done. You get it done?
We did.
Good.
Got it done.
Good. Sleep. You a big sleeper?
Not really. I need, if I get a good 5 hours, I'm usually good.
You know, it's actually bad because if I fall asleep, you know, watching, my wife and I love watching movies and streaming. And the other night I won't even tell you what we were watching. Well, it was a new Little House on the Prairie series. And I fell asleep. And I was like, well, why didn't you wake up? She said, because you were sleeping so peaceful. You know, and she gets it because she has lived with me. She was like, because you were sleeping.
Let them rest.
They even do that at the movie theater. And I'm like, now I did pay for this sleep, so y'all can nudge me. But, sleep is.
Good rest.
Yes, it matters. Story from a leadership experience that makes you laugh.
Ooh.
I hadn't even read this one before, and I thought about one of mine and laughed.
One that comes up from students that I've had before is the time that I ate dog food for meeting our reading goal. And so I laugh at that now. I was like, what was I thinking? But
you were younger.
Yes.
I did that, but I ended up dressing like Medea.
Oh.
Yeah, it made the paper, and I'm like in Colorado. But, you know, one that I did that
things that we do for kids.
That I regret, and then this is me. We had just started uniforms, and this is just it's horrible. Had just initiated uniforms. I was principal at one of the most prestigious middle schools, not only in Oklahoma or in Tulsa, but it's just phenomenal magnet school. Carver Middle School. George Washington Carver actually came, member of Phi Beta Sigma. He came to the opening of the school.
Wow.
And so, anyway, we had just started uniforms, and this kid was out of uniform or something, and we had a uniform closet, and I was like, boy, you know, this, and I went and grabbed some pants, and I said, no, go put these on and come back so I can give you a note to come back. Man, this brother walked in, and I just dropped my head, and I didn't want to laugh. I gave him some girl pants that were about a size too small.
He put them on?
He did. He had that respect, I guess.
Yeah,
but
he's like, Johnson
I
told
was
me to put them on.
man, you gonna get all kind of charges. You walk in class with them pants. So, but I laughed because it was just like one of those things, you know, a young Mr. Go do it. And I didn't think to look or sign. I just threw him a pair of khakis. But he put them on and came and showed me. But there are things that we do get to laugh about, often. Favorite place in Florida or in Tallahassee?
Favorite place, I would say Universal Studios.
Yeah.
Theme park. The new Epic Universe. Really like that one. And so when and if I get chances to go, is a theme park.
Yeah, theme parks are great. I fell in love when I was able to go for grad bash, and it's like I can just walk on stuff, get on things as well. What about in being from Houston? Favorite place in Houston?
and Houston has evolved. Right now, it is.
Should I ask before saved or after saved? No, just
NRG Stadium right now is the place. That's where the Houston Texans play. That's where the big Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo is held. And so that was not there when I was,
Right.
coming along, but it's there now, and have had a chance to go back and visit NRG Stadium, and I love it.
Okay, so let me tell you, ask this last Texas. So I'm if you don't know, you're gonna learn one more thing. Is it hurts to say, but it's a pride. Is a Dallas Cowboy fan.
Mm-hmm.
Houston Texans.
I had a starter jacket, Dallas Cowboys.
Okay, well, come on over then.
All the way through high school.
That's
and
me
Texas
and Coach Jones.
Yeah. So
Houston Texans.
I was a Cowboys fan.
But you know, I did like.
Now there's the thing, and my family is split between the two.
But you Cowboys?
I ride the fence on both of them. I'm not.
You know, I was. It was all Cowboy. I became a Cowboy fan because my dad was. I became a Yankee fan because my dad was. I was a Laker fan, and still because my dad was. But I think at the time period, I really liked the Houston Oilers for some reason.
Oh yeah, I still have some Oilers gear as well.
I still remember the song "We Are the Houston Oilers."
I still got autographs from high school.
Yeah.
That was like a required field trip to go to all the things, and so
and with Earl Campbell, man, and you couldn't miss that, man. So it was great.
Yes.
But greater is having you in the podcast studio with us today, and it's a blessing. Let me. I think I can say it right. Man of God, father, husband. As soon as I get my wedding invite, educator, superintendent, leader, but more than that, just a good brother, Dr. Christopher Lee Smart. I told you should have never told me that one. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it.
The podcast is definitely better for having you in here with us. So thank you for joining us.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Again, this is Superintendent Johnson. Again, thank you for joining us for another podcast. Please subscribe, join, like, share. As I said, we're not trying to do anything complicated. Just share stories about leadership, hear leaders about leadership, because most of the time those of us that ended up in leadership weren't really hunting for leadership. It was just our ordained responsibility. So again, thank you so much for joining us.